Happy morning, kids. Today we are again going to start with the common or local or vernacular names. That day we had seen that every organism is being provided a name, and those names could be of two types: vernacular names or local names and scientific names. So today we are going to first study about vernacular names, the common names, the local names, right? So these names are given in a particular language and are different in different regions, different languages, right? These names are based on some minor or major characteristics of the organism. For example, there is a plant Dudak, right? So why the plant has been named as Dudak? Because it produces doodh-like substance, a milky substance, a milky latex, right? Number 3, these names are easy to pronounce. Follow. But you know what is the problem with these local names? That they cannot be used for communication by the scientists because they have got certain limitations, right? So what are those limitations? Number 1, they cannot be used in communication among different regions of a country or world because there are different names, different common names in different languages in different regions. Okay, for example, aloo, Hindi word; potato, English word; batata, Maharashtrian, right? Likewise, butterfly, Hindi name Titli; in Bengali it's called as Prajapati; in Tamil it is called as Vannathu. Clear? So how many names an individual is going to remember? That is the major problem with these scientific names. Okay, for common people, for local people, it's okay, right? But for the scientists of different countries, it's literally impossible to remember, to learn about all those local names, right? Now, some of the names have incorrect meanings. Silverfish, jellyfish, starfish, and none of them are true fish, right? Even silverfish is an insect. It doesn't even live in water. Jellyfish is a cylindrid. Starfish is an echinoderm. So none of them belong to the true fish category, right? So they have incorrect meanings, right? Some names have no significance, or you may say that those names are misleading ones. Widow's tears in Hindi. What will be the Hindi of widow's tears? Vidwa ki aasu. This is the scientific name for Rio plant. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, kal, aaj, kal. Scientific name for Brunfelsia, right? Likewise, lady's finger. Scientific name for Bindi. Got it? So these are the problems with the common names. Okay. Now one more very big problem is there with these common names, that the common names are given only to those organisms which are being used by us, right? No common names have been given to bacteria or viruses. Got it? They have only and only scientific names, right? And another big problem, that all the organisms do not occur in a particular area, right? So only those organisms will be named in that particular area which are being found over there. Got it? So there was a need to standardize the names so that a particular organism could be named by the same name throughout the world, and that led to the evolution of, that led to the discovery of the scientific names, right? But before giving scientific name to an organism, Again, one thing which is the most important is the identification. The individual, the organism should be identified correctly, right? And then a name is given by the biologist to represent a particular organism in every part of the world, right? So such names which are provided by the scientists to an organism are called as scientific names. The most common type of scientific names which are in use are binomial nomenclature. Bi means two. The system of naming where the name of every organism, the scientific name of every organism has two parts, right? Genus and species. And this binomial nomenclature was provided by Carolus Linnaeus. Clear? Carolus Linnaeus was the first one to provide a system for scientific naming of the living organism. And what was that system? It was known as binomial nomenclature. Why? Because the scientific name of, according to the system of nomenclature, the scientific name of every organism comprises two parts. The first part of the name indicates the genus and the second part of the name indicates the species. Genus is mostly used as a noun, right? And the species is used as an adjective which describes about the living organisms, right? Now, in addition to binomial nomenclature, some of the organisms have got the scientific name which have three parts, and in that case such a system of nomenclature is called as trinomial nomenclature, a system of naming where organisms' name will have three different parts, but it is not for all the types of organisms, right? And in that case, what will be the significance, what category will be occupied by the third name? So as usual, first will be the name of the genus, second will be the species, and third will indicate variety in case of plants, and in case of animals it will represent subspecies. For example, scientific name of common man, the modern man, is Homo sapiens sapiens. So Homo is genus, sapiens is species, and the third sapiens is the subspecies, right? Now these nomenclatures, these naming systems actually follow the 5 codes of nomenclature for the naming of different groups of organisms. Okay, for example, ICBN. What is the full form of ICBN? International Code of Botanical Nomenclature for the naming of plants, right? ICZN, International Code of Zoological, Z for zoo, zoological nomenclature for the naming of animals. ICBACN, International Code of Bacteriological Nomenclature for the naming of bacteria. ICNCP, International Code of Nomenclature for cultivated plants. Okay, and the last one is ICVN, International Code of Viral Nomenclature for the naming of viruses, right? So all these institutions, they have got their own rules and regulations. So before naming a bacteria or a virus or a plant or an animal or a cultivated variety of plant, the scientist has to follow the rules and regulations issued by these societies. Okay, now let us study about some general rules of nomenclature, right? We will study about binomial nomenclature only, right? So the scientific names consist of 2 words, generic and the specific, right? The generic name, the first one, is like a noun, and always the first letter of the generic name is a capital letter, right? The specific name, the second part of the scientific name, represents the species, and actually it is used more like an adjective. It is like a describing word, and the first letter of a specific word is always small. Okay, that means in Homo sapiens, H of Homo will always be capital, S of sapiens will always be small, right? So that is what is written. First letter of the generic name is in capital form, and that of specific name is in small form. So that has been shown with the help of example. You can see Homo, H is capital, and sapiens is the specific name. So here S is small. Likewise, Panthera leo is the scientific name of lion, right? So the first letter of genus Panthera, P, is capital, and the first letter of species Leo, L, is small. Okay, now when these scientific names are handwritten, they are to be underlined separately. As you can see, I have underlined it over here, right? But if we are writing the scientific name as a title of the paragraph, then these rules are not to be followed. These scientific names in that case could be written in capital letter, and they need not to be underlined, right? Scientific names like Homo sapiens, the language is a bit different. It doesn't seem to be Roman or English. Why? Because these scientific names are Latinized. They are Latin in origin, right? So what does this sentence mean? The scientific names being Latin in origin. Latin is a dead language. Okay, so since the language is not in use, so there is no change, no question of any type of change in the spelling of the names. The language which we use in our day-to-day life, that can have some changes according to the convenience. For example, Madras, what is the new name? Chennai. Likewise, this one, Calcutta has become Kolkata. Okay, so since these are English names, and according to the convenience they are being changed, but scientific names are Latin in origin. Latin is a dead language, so there is no question of any change in the spelling, right? Scientific names are printed in italics. If you will see the text carefully, if you observe the text carefully, what will you see? That in whichever section scientific names are written, they appear a bit different from the remaining text, right? So that is what we say, that scientific names are printed in italics, and this is to make the scientific names distinct from the remaining part. जो साइंटिफिक नेम है ऑर्गेनिज्म का, वो बाकी टेक्स्ट से अलग दिखे, इसीलिए साइंटिफिक नेम is printed in italics, right? Then scientific names, they may have the name of author, right? And if they have the name of author, then it could be written either in full or abbreviated form after the species, and it is always in Roman script. For example, one example has been given, scientific name of mango. What is it? It's Mangifera indica, and you know, after indica what is written? L-I-N-N, lin, full stop, right? So Mangifera indica is the scientific name of mango, where Mangifera indicates the genus, indica indicates the species, and L-I-N-N is actually the name of the discoverer, Linnaeus. So that is written in Roman only, but it may be written in abbreviated form as it is written here, or it may be written in full form, right? Now, advantages of scientific name. Every organism has been given a scientific name irrespective of its importance. Whether it is important or not, all the individuals have been given a scientific name, right? biggest advantage is these scientific names are universal. The organism is named by the same scientific name throughout the world, right? Like scientific name of pea, Pisum sativum, scientific name of man, Homo sapiens, scientific name of potato, Solanum tuberosum. So these are universal, right? Could be understood by any scientist anywhere in the world, right? There is no possibility of any change in the spelling of scientific name. Why? Because these scientific names are Latin in origin, right? The names indicate the scientific names. They even indicate relationship of a species with others present in the same genus, right? For example, Panthera leo is the scientific name of lion, right? And Panthera tigris is the scientific name of tiger. So what do they indicate? Lion and tiger, they belong to common genus, that is Panthera. Okay, among human beings, likewise Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. So only the species is different, genus is same. So what does it indicate? This indicates their common origin, right? And it even indicates the type of relationship existing between them, right? So after giving them a name, in order to study it conveniently, because there is a very big number of animals and plants, that day only you people were told that 1.7 to 1.8 million plant and animal species have been discovered so far. So it is impossible for a living organism, for anyone, to remember the names of all these organisms, right? So what is the best part? These scientific names, we could remember about the organisms by grouping them in convenient categories. And what will be the criteria for the grouping? That will be based on some easily observable features, that is even based on certain similarities and dissimilarities, right? And why grouping of organism is being done? So that one could study about them conveniently. So the grouping of anything into convenient categories based on some easily observable features is called as classification, right? And classification enables us to study about, to at least to have an idea about other members belonging to the same group. For example, if we say class Mammalia, so then some characters immediately come into our mind, that those who belong to class Mammalia, definitely they give birth to young ones, they have external pinna, they feed their young ones through mammary gland, right? So some common features will arise. So if we know the common features of a particular group, we can have an idea about other members of the same group, right? Though they are different from each other also, right? So that is the main purpose of classification. Even if when you go to a shop and you ask for something, a shampoo or a talcum powder, right? The shopkeeper immediately gets it available to you. Why? Because he have placed different things in a definite category. Same type of things have been placed together so that he can get those things immediately without wasting time, right? If this system of order is not there, then what will happen? He'll have a lot of problem in getting the thing which actually he wants to find out. So everywhere this grouping is being done. So same is there with the living organism. They are also grouped into convenient categories, and this grouping is done on the basis of some easily observable features based on similarities and dissimilarities, right? So, when we combine all three aspects of biodiversity, that is identification, nomenclature, classification, then it gives rise to a branch of science called as taxonomy, right? So how can we define taxonomy? Taxonomy is a branch of biology, is a branch of science which deals with the principles and procedures of identification, nomenclature and classification of organisms, right? Taxonomy involves the principles and procedures of identification, nomenclature and classification of organisms, right? And who is known as father of taxonomy? Undoubtedly, again it is Carolus Linnaeus, right? And the unit of taxonomy is taxa, right? So what is taxa? A taxonomic group of any rank, like it could be a species, sometimes it could resemble a family, it could resemble a class, it could be a genus, right? Everything which actually denotes any particular rank, that is called as taxa. For a simple example, if suppose we say dog, so we can imagine the picture of a dog, right? So a dog could be like this. If we say cat, then we can imagine cat could be like this. If we say mammal, right, then immediately some of the features come into our mind, right? If we say plant, so plant will have these features, that is also very clear in our mind. Okay, likewise animals. So all these actually represent different taxa. Okay, like dog is also a taxa, cat is also a taxa, mammal, which actually belongs to a class, that is also a taxa, right? Plant and animal, which actually represent kingdom, plant kingdom, animal kingdom, they also represent a taxa. So what is taxa? Any taxonomic group which represents any rank in a system of classification is called as taxa, right? And when just similar to taxonomy, there is one more term related, and that is systematics, right? Just like taxonomy, systematics also deals with the study of diversity of organisms. Got it? Diversity of organisms, but in addition to the study of organisms, it even includes their comparative relationship, study of their comparative and evolutionary relationships. Okay, so how can we define systematics? It is the branch of science that deals with the diversity of organisms, just like taxonomy. Diversity of organisms means with the help of identification, nomenclature, classification. In addition to that, it even deals with the study of all their comparative and evolutionary relationships. How are they interrelated to each other in terms of evolution? How are they similar to each other? How are they different from each other? Right? So that actually broadens the study, and that branch of biology is known as systematics. Okay, so in the next class we'll start with the taxonomic hierarchy. Thank you, children. If you have any doubt, any query, you can call me individually. You can send me your queries individually anytime at my WhatsApp number. Right? Thank you, children.